So some of you have been following along since the beginning of the series of the Gita teachings, and some of you are dropping in and out, and nothing is right or wrong. It's where you're at and what you could receive and how you're able to take the teachings in when it's available to you, when you're able to. So I won't go back into the whole story, but I do want to talk about, I may have mentioned this last week, and I'm not sure if I did, but I want to sort of imprint this idea. So we've been talking about the different paths of yoga that Krishna is teaching Arjuna, the different paths of yoga. Karma yoga, which is action, Jnana yoga, which is knowledge, and Bhakti yoga, which is devotion and love. And of course, I just want to remind us that we could look at this text literally, Krishna and Arjuna, and as real people in the story, and that they're symbols and metaphors for our own self. Krishna being our higher self in our heart, and Arjuna being our personality and our ego. So we could look at it then symbolically, and then how these teachings that Krishna is sharing with Arjuna are relevant for us today in these troubled times. So last week I talked about karma yoga, and that there were these phases of karma yoga. So karma, meaning action, then is the actions that we take, and that there are these three phases. There's the before the action, so it's almost like a pre-thought, and then it goes into thought. And that becomes the before the action. So you have an idea, or you have a thought, or you want to do something, create something. And for today, like, do I go to the grocery store today? Do I go to the post office? What do I do? What's that action I want to do? So the thought starts to arise, and that's the before. And then you decide, okay, I will do this. And then you do the action. And that's the action. Then that's that present moment awareness. It's during the action. And you're aware. So the teaching there is to consider the before, consider the intention, consider the action, and then have total presence in the action. And then it's the after. And why I'm bringing this up again, excuse me, my allergies, I'm itching, I'm sorry, is that we really should care about the things that we do, the things that we think about, the things that we say, and the things that we do. And through the yogas, we learn how to do them more skillfully. So when Krishna says, let go of the fruits of your action, or let go of the attachment to the fruits of your action, he doesn't mean we shouldn't care about. And from a tantric point of view, we should totally care about what we're doing. And we should totally care about, like Karen, you talked about having your aquarium or your window of meeting and visit with your grandchild. So you should totally care about that. There was thought about it. Getting in your car, should I dress a certain way? So maybe he'll like the colors I wear. And, what am I going to do when I get there? There's thought, there's intention, there's love, there's motivation. And you go, and then you're totally present for that action that you're doing. And then you let it go, because you don't know how this little baby or this grown-up child or whatever, how they will receive that. You have to let go of it. And that's what Krishna is talking about. We have to let go of what the action is. What we can have an intention for it, and we do the best, and we're as present as can be, and we put all the pieces together as intentionally as can be, and then we do it, and we're present for it, and then we have to let it go. And that, for many of us, is the hiccup, is the hard part, is the difficult part of the path. is that we all, on some level or another, have what I call the death grip on it. We want the outcome to be the way we want the outcome. And life as it is right now just shows us that we really don't have control over the outcomes of just about anything other than our response to life. So we set ourselves up, we do the best we can, we have the conversation, we choose words as carefully as possible, we hold it in our heart, and then we give it as if it's an offering, and then we have to let it go. So that's a really, I think, important part of the teachings. And so I wanted to repeat that again, just in case I wasn't really clear or imprinted that enough last time. So that's karma action. Then as we move through, I talked about that the Gita is like 3 big chunks of teachings. And as we move through now into this next chunk of teachings, Krishna starts to teach about Jana Yoga, which is knowledge. And it's really about learning to tap into our higher wisdom. It's book smart, it's taking classes, it's learning how to do a yoga pose, it's all of that. And then it's also really connecting to the Krishna aspect of ourself, that heart and higher mind. And what Krishna is also saying, he's starting to teach Arjuna the qualities of nature, which are called the gunas, and gunas mean qualities. And so there's a guna called sattva, which translate loosely to light, and it means sort of equanimity, equilibrium. And then tamas, which translates to fire, and it's about, darkness, and it's more inertia, earthy, dark, subtle. And then rajas is more fiery and has this quality of, we need a little bit of fire and passion to actually do anything in our life. And so all 3 qualities, and what Krishna is telling Arjuna is that because these qualities are changeable, just think about here in Arizona, it started to warm up, and then the last couple of days got a little windy, and today was cooler, and then we might get rain, and then it's going to heat up again. So there's light, and there's dark, and there's changeability. And so the qualities of the gunas are within us. So that's just like I was saying earlier, that I was speaking with a couple friends, that even through the day, our emotions may vary because of the qualities of nature within us. We may feel a little heavy. Yesterday, I just really wanted to sleep a lot. I was had a little bit more feeling of the tamasic energy I had. And since my nature is so not like that, that I even started to tell myself I was being lazy, which I thought was funny. And then I had to sort of like go, no, especially under these circumstances, it's just a heavier energy. And when we're aware of it, then we can work with it. And that's what Krishna is telling Arjuna, that when you are aware of the qualities of nature, when you have knowledge of yourself and how things work, then we're better equipped to make better choices. And so he's telling him that he's encouraging Arjuna to have a deeper understanding of self. I'm going to let Peyton in here. So have a deeper understanding of self. And how we do that is by learning. That's why we've been coming to this class for the last few weeks. This is why we're taking other classes, like I just mentioned. That's what we're studying and we're learning. Because when we have a deeper understanding of the way nature works and gain knowledge, and we can experience knowledge, experienced knowledge equals wisdom. So I want to say that again, experienced knowledge equals wisdom. So when we do things, we can learn them. even the way we learn, some of us are more audio, some of us are more visual, some of us are more kinesthetic, and often we're a little bit of everything. So Krishna is really telling him, now the path of knowledge, the yoga of jnana, is really important, because when you know things, you have a better chance of making better choices. So that's really important in that respect. And he's telling him also, Krishna's encouraging Arjuna to take shelter in him, in Krishna. Krishna is telling Arjuna, take shelter in me. And so if we relate that to symbolism, we can take shelter in our own higher wisdom, in our own deep knowledge. And this, ironically, we're being called to shelter in, and I have chosen to call it sheltering up, because it shouldn't be just a feeling of heaviness all the time. It should be a period that we can find wisdom, and we could find happiness, and we could find joy amongst all the other things. So there's a sheltering in that's happening, and Krishna is telling Arjuna, take shelter in me. And so I'm suggesting that we take shelter in each other, because we are such social animals and social beings. And so taking that choice away from us has been challenging for us, but we are figuring out how to be in community, even though we have physical distancing. And I've also decided not to say I'm trying not to say social distancing, because this is not social distancing, this is community, but we're physically distanced. So it's important to remember that we're keeping socially connected, physically distanced, and taking shelter in our own wisdom and in each other's wisdom. So I think that's a really important part of this teaching for us right now. And then he goes on to tell him that these two are really important, that you can't really have karma action without jnana action, without knowledge. You can't really act without knowledge. You can, but what a mosh pit you'll create for yourself. So when you gain more knowledge, when you really steep yourself in wisdom and wisdom teachings, then your actions hopefully will start to reflect that more deeply. And that's how we engage in life. We engage then in life more consciously. And this whole teaching really is about how to engage the yogas, karma, jnana, and bhakti, so that we have more engagement with life itself. So life itself becomes richer and more meaningful. So he's telling Arjuna that engagement in life, so this is from a tantric perspective now too, because from a classical yoga perspective, engagement in life can often be thought of as obstacles to enlightenment. But from a tantric perspective, engagement in life is foundational. It is the yoga. It brings us more into consciousness and community. It doesn't separate us out. Okay, so it actually, the more committed you are to the engagement of yoga, then the more easily you are able to do your dharma, whatever that dharma is for you. So let me just see. And it reminds me, of course, of my teacher, Douglas, who says often, you are the company you keep, so keep good company. So here we are right now in this circle. How many people we have, it doesn't matter. It's the quality of people that are here, that we chose to be here. And so that's really valuable, that we choose to be in good company, because we lift each other up. So it's the inner relationship that we have with our Krishna self, and it's the relationship we have with each other, because after all, we're mirrors for one another. Let me see. He says, I love this part because it reminds me of the breakaway teachings and living your legacy. And I had no idea really that when I got on this path, that when I look back at the Gita, that he speaks to this in a way, because Krishna tells Arjuna, don't wait till the end of your life to find me, to find shelter in me. Don't wait till your last dying days to connect to the highest. You need to do it every day. You need to practice every day. And so to me, that's living your legacy. You know, we need to break away, and that's what Krishna is telling Arjuna. Break away from this idea that, you know, you can't fight. Break away from this idea that you can't do your dharma, because you have to do your dharma. You could choose not to, but what kind of life is that? And if you bring me in, if you act from this place of wisdom, then you're sheltering in with me. You are living your legacy. That's how I'm choosing to look at that, because it just feels so right to me. It just feels so accurate to me. So he says, where there's a word that Krishna uses in the Bhagavad Gita called Shraddha, and it means, it's a Sanskrit word, and it means faith. And one of the interpretations of it, it doesn't solely or even really mean faith as a religion. It means faith in nature, faith in higher consciousness. And it also can be translated to mean heart. So Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to look at where he places his heart. So it's another way to look at Shraddha and the experience that we will have a fuller experience of the divine when we are intentional and thoughtful about where we place our heart. Basically, it's who we're spending time with. Back to the, you know, the themes that I've been saying all along is what we're ingesting, what we're reading, what we're involved in, what we're looking at. And all of that will affect our hearts in one way or another. So look at where you're placing your heart. And that the divine is within us. So that making that connection again. Let me see. He says that our inner states determines our destiny. I love that. So how we live our life and how our inner states of being are reflect then the choices we make and how we interact with people and how we engage in life itself. And that sort of determines our dharma and determines how we move into our dharma or not. And he also says, see the divine in all things. Krishna is telling Arjuna, see the divine in all things. And I said this the other day, is that it reminds me of one of the tenets of Jana Yoga, is that as teachers, we're taught to look for the good in the student. So when we go to make an adjustment verbally or manually, when we're talking to our students, we're to take a pause and take a breath, because that pause and that breath then will bring us back to our core nature, which is wisdom. And we will pause and see the beauty of our student before we go to make the adjustment. And that's really important. So we are to look at and try to find the beauty in even these days that we're experiencing right now. And I can really imagine, and maybe we'll have an opportunity to talk in a little bit, that all of you have something really lovely to share that you've experienced in these. How many days is it anyway? 2, 3 weeks? A year? 20 years? So he's also saying then that the path of self-empowerment, of transformation and wisdom, is a path of self-empowerment. It's a path of personal growth, and it will lead to the inner practices of yoga. So most of us are physical yogis, you know, whether we have a hard, intense practice or we have a really gentle practice, but most of us are movement. We do some kind of movement. Karen's a dancer. That's a yoga right there. And we do asana as well, most of us. So that's one way in. And also there's the inner states of yoga, the inner path, the meditation, the mantra, the prayer, the lighting of your candle, the ritual. Some of these things I'm repeating through the weeks because Krishna repeats them through the Gita. He repeats them and says them just a little bit differently, which again reminds me of Nisara classes. You could have 3 different teachers teach the same class, the same theme, the same poses, and the students will hear something a little bit differently because it's the presentation, it's the teacher's heart, it's the way they deliver it. And that's so beautiful. So Krishna is doing this in the Bhagavad Gita. He's saying pretty much the same, a lot of the same things, but he's trying to say it in different ways. So he really is anchoring the message and really connecting to Arjuna's nature, so he could take it in and have some kind of deeper awareness and transformation. Because ultimately, the Bhagavad Gita is a story of transformation, self-transformation. So he, again, reminds Arjuna that different paths lead us to the divine. There's no really right path. But Arjuna does ask him, if knowledge is so important, then why do I have to act? Why can't I just study? And Krishna says, it is important, but they go together. You really can't have one without the other. And that knowledge then informs our actions, and we act from a deeper sense of self and a deeper sense of awareness. And he's asking us to just be the best version of ourselves. You know, can we? How do we? If we practice these 3 paths of yoga, how can they inform and help us be the best version of ourselves today? And then we practice because we need it again tomorrow, and then we do it again tomorrow, and we do it again tomorrow. And so one of the teachings here too is that each of us really, when it all comes down to it, we're really all seeking a direct experience of God. Whether it's your God is different than my God, but we all are wanting some kind of direct experience of our highest wisdom self. And so that's pretty much what happens in chapter 11. Is a very famous chapter because Arjuna asks Krishna, okay, you know, you've told me this, you've told me this, you've talked about this. He said, I get it, but you know, you're just talking, and I really want to see you. I want it all. I want to be able to really experience who you are as the divine, who you are as God. And so Krishna warns him. He says, you really, you know, are you sure about this? Because it's a lot. And he said, yeah, I really do. And so Krishna says, well, you can never really see with just divine eyes. So I'm going to let you see me through, you can never really see me through your humanness. So I'm going to let you see me through divine wisdom and divine eyes. So he reveals himself. He reveals the beauty. You know, just think of, I'm looking outside and looking at the sun dappling on the daisy wildflowers out there. So he shows him the beauty of nature, the beauty of the world. He shows him, the oceans and the mountains and the majesty, all the beauty. And then he shows him death and destruction and evil and just the big, bad, beautiful, and the ugly, I call it. And only for a couple moments, because Arjuna is like, holy shit, I can't take this. This is a lot. So it's like overwhelming to him. And so Krishna then says, okay. And Arjuna asks him, please, I've seen enough. Just let me see you as Krishna, as my charioteer, as my cousin, as my best friend. And so Krishna then does that. But the idea here is that we all are seeking some kind of direct experience. And I've mentioned this before, that years ago, I really, as a Anusara teacher, I had a little bit of an immature understanding of some of the tantric teachings. And so I wanted my students, when they left class, to have like this hit. Like I wanted them to be almost high when they left, or at least a couple times during the class to feel high. Because I really thought at that time that that's what I was really supposed to be offering them. And I used to call it the Frappuccino hit. And then as my understanding matured and the teachings deepened inside of me, I realized that, first of all, that's really not appropriate. That if somebody has, I'm here to be a servant of the teachings, and if a student has this direct experience of God while they're on the mat, that's their experience. It's not for me to try to give it to them. That's their experience. And that we won't always have the Frappuccino hit. It may be really quiet, it may be really subtle. It may be looking at that way the sun is dappling on that wildflower bush. So I would just want you to think for a moment how you may have and how you do receive the divine. And have there been times when you've had sort of that, 4th of July moment? And have there been times when it's just been quiet? And just kind of contemplate that, and how it may have felt inside of you and how it may feel. And that to know that neither one is right or wrong, but that it's your direct experience. It's not for someone else to bestow upon you or give you. If the opportunity is right and all of the yogas come together, then we may experience together and then we may not. So I think that's just really beautiful teaching. So he's also saying, he tells in chapter 12, so it kind of went through 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. In chapter 12, it's the shortest chapter. And in it, he's talking about bhakti yoga. Krishna is talking about bhakti, and bhakti again is love and it's devotion. And it's not short because it's unimportant. It should be all about love is really what it is, right? Everything is about love. And even, I can't remember the rapper's name. He's recently done a song about the F virus. It's really quite powerful, some video. And that what we really need to be concerned about is less than the virus, while we need to be concerned about it and be aware of it. It's more about fear. And so the fear can only be dissipated and counteracted and neutralized by love. And I just saw that today, as a matter of fact, and it was so beautiful. And that we sometimes don't really appreciate the power of love itself. And so Krishna is telling him that, and he's saying that there's different sort of personalities that come to bhakti yoga. to the yoga a devotion. And so you could think of it also as like when we do our mantra, or when we do our, I think Peyton is on this call. Peyton made me these beautiful mala beads a few years ago when I was really ill. And they're my favorite mala beads because, one, she made them for me, and they're infused in such love, with such love. So when we're doing our prayer beads, whether it's a rosary if you're Catholic, or you're using mala beads as a way to pray, it's all really about love and raising our vibration so it's higher. So we don't stay in the fear. We don't stay in that rabbit hole that I call it, and just start feeding that and feeding that and feeding that, and then just ingesting it and poisoning ourselves. So, and if we find a way to demonstrate love and to be love and to practice love, he's saying love is a practice, which I think is beautiful, then it raises everybody's vibration up. And so we said that there's people who are seeking love that, let me see where it went, the devotees, we don't remember now, that want knowledge, that are a little bit of afraid, that simply want to do everything for him, and then that are already adepts. And he kind of like dismisses that to Arjuna. He says, you know, you're not quite there yet where you just live in the state of love, but there are people and you could aspire to that. But practice, practice, practice. So he's reminding him again that everything is practice. Even doing your dharma is practice. And that it's really important that we do action, and we do selfless action, but we do it again with the awareness that what we say, what we do, how we do it has meaning, and that with that comes a sense of serenity. That, do you hear my dogs barking? Somebody is supposed to be taking care of them, but somebody apparently isn't. So, and he's also asking us to engage the senses. That one of the ways that we are able to do this is when all of our senses are engaged. When our hearing, you can hear my dog, when we have a sense of taste, when we engage sight, when we engage touch. And it's a little hard for us now with this physical distancing, because we're such huggers, you know, we're such this community of lovers, that it's hard to have this little bit of physical distancing. But there's other ways that we could have, you know, maybe take that really luscious bath and put essential oils in that and feel the water, or have a beautiful Ayurveda oil and rub your skin, but engage your senses in the best way that you can, because that is part of engagement of yoga. And that when we engage our yogas, our senses, we are practicing advanced yoga. And that, Phyllis, I think, asked me this the other day. It was like, what would I say is like the base, that like a big teaching of yoga, of the Bhagavad Gita? And there's just so many, but I think when it comes down to it, is that he tells us we have choice on how we want to engage life. That he could give us all the strategies, and he is giving us the strategies, because basically the yogas are strategies for a more meaningful and full life, rich life. But he's also telling us, you know, then it's up to you. You have choice on how you want to go about this. So, yeah, so there we have it. So I want you to just for a moment reacclimate yourself to your space. and close your eyes. I think one of the difficult things for me is when I'm on classes like this, is that I really want to take the teachings in. And so we take them in on that mind level, on the intellectual level. And so basically we're in our head, which is appropriate. We need to be right now to take in the knowledge. And then we're able to take it in on a physical level as well. So close your eyes if you haven't already. And settle in with your breath. And this pranayama is just going to be simple breath awareness. Place your hands, right hand or left hand, on top of each other, doesn't matter, but on your low belly. And then with your inhale, expand your belly into your hands. And there should be a natural pause, and then pause. And on your exhale, draw your navel in. And there's a pause. And then again, just follow the natural rhythm of your breath. So when you inhale, you actually belly breathe and you expand your belly and your torso and your rib cage. And when you exhale, you draw everything in and up. Try to remain sitting tall and don't collapse when you inhale and expand your belly. And then notice the flow and the rhythm of the breath. Be aware, so no right or wrong here, but simply be aware if you're more comfortable with the inhale or more comfortable with the exhale. And then you could keep your hands on your belly or simply rest them in your lap, however you're most comfortable. And I want you to keep your eyes closed, but see the light behind your eyes. There's little pinpricks, little sparkles, little diamonds of light. Just notice. And then whatever your hands are touching, if you're touching your belly still or touching the floor or the seat, just notice, even rub your index and thumbs together and notice the texture of whatever it is. Feel and notice the texture. And then think about the last thing you ate, or perhaps some of us are coffee lovers or tea lovers, or if you're going to have dinner after this and you've been cooking, just roll your tongue around in your mouth, back of your teeth, and taste the last taste, or the taste that you will be enjoying momentarily. And then open your ears and listen to your internal sounds. Maybe there's a low humming. Maybe you could hear cars, tires on the pavement, the sound of your own breath. And then join your hands in front of you and rub them together. Listen to the sound of your hands rubbing. And then release them and cup them at your eyes. You could touch your face or not. Feel the energy, the vibration, the heat. And then bring your hands together again in front of your heart center. And knowing that we are connected through our intention and through our hearts. We're going to chant Om together. Take a deep, full breath. Om.